Hello and welcome to Business Daily on Trust Television. On this program, we'll bring you up-to-the-minute updates on developments in the world of business and the economy. I am your host, Christiana Amodu Otinya. Thank you for joining us on the program today. First, we'll begin with the headlines. Colonial Pension Fund, PTAD, says the repatriated £26.5 million was used to pay pensioners. Now, steps to easing food crisis are being taken as Russia and Ukraine agree to extend Black Sea grain deal. We'll give you more updates on that during the Business Roundup segment of the program. We'll take a short breather. When we come back, it'll be time to go into updates from the stock market. Please stay. Welcome back. Now let's get straight into the stock market. We begin from the local buzz here in Nigeria, talking about the Nigeria exchange. Now, weak investor sentiment dominated the Nigeria exchange as we saw the all share index decline by 0.08% to settle at 44,011.22. Now, on activity levels, as you can see here now, a total volume of 97.70 million shares valued at 847.88 million naira changed hands in 2,980 deals on the floor of the Nigeria exchange. The market cap, however, settled at 23.97 trillion naira. Now, the downturn was impacted by losses recorded in medium and large capitalized stocks, amongst which are Guinness Nigeria, United Capital, Zenith Bank, Dangote Sugar Refinery, and Lafarge Africa. So a lot of downturn in these shares culminated to the downward close for penultimate trade on the floor of the Nigeria exchange. Now, experts or analysts that watch the market have predicted that in the final trading session of the week, that's Friday, it is anticipated that the bearish performance will be sustained on the Nigeria exchange. Now, let's go over to other bourses in Africa. Of course, we'll look at what's happening in the Johannesburg Securities Exchange. Now, we are seeing a positive close, 0.24% there for the JSE to settle at 72,400. And for Ghana, marginal upward trend there, 0.01% at 2,463. Let's go over to Wall Street and see what's happening in the United States. Of course, futures were mixed early Friday as investors continued evaluating earnings reports and tougher language from Federal Reserve speakers. Now, we are seeing the market in the U.S. staying largely bearish, and this is because of the statement coming from speakers of the Federal Reserve, and it's looking like the interest rates in the U.S. will continue to go up, and now that's sending some sort of shivers into investors, and that's why we are seeing the C here staying largely red. Now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average down 0.02%, the S&P 500 down 0.21%, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite there down 0.35%. Let's go over to Europe now. European markets were modestly higher as investors continue to assess the trajectory of monetary policy after some tough statements from U.S. Federal Reserve officials. Now, notably amongst them is St. Louis Federal Reserve President James Bullard. He said on Thursday that the policy rate is not yet in a zone that may be considered sufficiently restrictive, and the markets are reacting to that. So we are seeing the markets staying largely bullish, 0.33% there for the FTSE 100 in the UK. For the CAC run in France, the CAC 40, 0.53% climbing there, and the DAX is up 0.24%. I can mention monetary policy is in focus. Now let's go over to Asia Pacific region where investors are digesting Japan's core consumer price index for October, which climbed 3.6% year on year, and this is higher than expected and at the fastest pace in 40 years. And we're seeing that impact Nikkei 225 in Japan here, down 0.11% to settle at 27,899.77. For mainland China and the Kospi in South Korea, we're seeing the Shanghai Composite down 0.58%, and for the Kospi in South Korea, that's the only green we have on this board, the chart for Asian market is up 0.06%. Over now to the commodities prices now. Oil prices are climbing, although still moderating as the dollar slipped, but we're headed for hefty weekly losses. Now, Brent crude, international benchmark for crude oil, $89.76 per barrel, shedding 0.01%. Of course, marginal decline for Brent crude. There are worries about what's going to drive the U.S. economy. There are also worries about what's happening with COVID-19 resurging in China, the world's largest crude importer. So all of that is shaping the sentiment in the oil market. Now, for the bullion, talking about the gold is down 0.08% at $1,762 per ounce. Now, for gold prices, we are seeing a pullback happen in that market, and as a result of the comments from central bankers, we remember high interest rates discourage investing in gold, which does not pay any interest when the interest rates are high. So for the commodities chart, is a sea of red. The arrows are all pointing downward for both the agro commodities and what we are seeing in the metal industry and in the oil market. So the commodity market is really in the red, and the bears are playing in this market. But investors are monitoring, and they are saying, analysts are saying, they expect a rebound in coming weeks for the commodities market. Let's go over to the crypto watch and see what the prices are like today for cryptocurrencies. For Bitcoin, $16,704. Ethereum is doing $1,209.57. And Binance is still staying steadily at $271.02. As you can see, they're all still climbing. The market is still trying to find its balance from what happened with the FTX challenge. However, crypto scammers have been accessing cheap and easy black market of individuals willing to put their name and face on fraudulent projects, all for the low price of $8. Now, this was revealed by blockchain security firms Cetic, and they have uncovered this. So if you're investing in this market, or you know someone that is playing in this market, it is pertinent that you be careful and also invest in what you understand. That's what we have for you on the stock market review segment. However, I have my guest with me in the studio. He is Steve Nwachukwu. Steve Nwachukwu monitors what happens in the stock market greatly, and I'm very sure about that. Now, Steve, I want you to react to these numbers, of course, and particularly to the Nigeria exchange. Just quickly, I just want to get your thoughts quickly on some of the numbers we just saw. As a broker yourself, tell me what you think about all the numbers we just put up.
Yes, of course. Market is witnessing a bearish trend, is expected. Yes, all over the world, investors have been careful, and confidence building has been the issue. Just like you read it, all the markets across the world. Now, in particular in Nigeria, Nigeria is peculiar in the sense that this is the election season. The fever of election is actually affecting what is going on in the market. People are being conscious, people are being careful, and that's why you continue to see more of the sell side than the buy side. So that's why you expect the index. But we're expecting Santa to set in a couple of days to come. So market will actually rebound and prices will come back to it. There's one thing about Nigerian market, the dividend yield in most of the capitalized stocks are very attractive, and you cannot find that in the rest of the exchanges in the world. So Nigerian market continues to be the investors' best bet.
Okay, the Nigerian exchange, as you have heard from Steve Nwachukwu, that the investors' best bet. We'll continue to monitor and see what Santa will have in its bag for the Nigeria market. However, at this point, we'll bring you the business roundup, where we'll tell you about stories in the world of business. Take a listen.
The Pension Transitional Arrangement Directorate, PTAD, has announced that it has received £26.5 million from the United Kingdom, an amount which was left over from the money used to pay British colonial officers who worked in Nigeria. The Executive Secretary of PTAD, Chioma Ejikeme, disclosed this on Thursday during the 58th ministerial briefing at the State House. The PTAD chief stated that the amount recovered was used to clear outstanding arrears to pensioners across all the pension departments, particularly the huge arrears inherited from the defunct and privatized agencies. Also recovered as legacy pension assets by the Directorate is a sum of 17.85 billion naira from boards of trustees and underwriters of Treasury-funded federal parastatals. The PTAD boss further revealed that the Directorate has paid over 610 billion naira from January 2015 to December 2021 in monthly pensions, noting that it had achieved 90% of its mandate. In Europe, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, says all parties have agreed to extend the Black Sea grain deal to facilitate Ukraine's agricultural exports from its southern ports. Guterres, who welcomed the agreement, disclosed this in a statement on Thursday. In July, Russia and Ukraine signed separate agreements with Turkey and the United Nations to enable the export of millions of tons of grains needed across the world.
Welcome back, and thank you for still staying there with us on the program. That's the Business Roundup. Of course, trust us to bring you a roundup of business activities in Nigeria and other parts of the world. It's time to get into the crux of the matter for today. And now we'll be looking at the multi-dimensional poverty index that was released by the National Bureau of Statistics, which of course stated that 133 million Nigerians, that's 63%, are suffering from multi-dimensional poverty, with children more than half of poor people in the country. Now, our correspondent Chamunda Beng was at that program, and here's what happened.
The World Bank had earlier revealed that 90 million Nigerians were living in abject poverty. However, with the current instability of the naira, high rates of insecurity, severe floods, and the continuous upward trend in inflationary pressures, it has become imperative to revisit the World Bank figures. United Nations resident and humanitarian coordinator in Nigeria, Mataya Shimale, reveals the results of the survey carried out.
According to this year's MPI, 63% of people, 133 million Nigerians, are multidimensionally poor, i.e., being deprived in more than one dimension of the four measured. Multidimensional poverty is higher in rural areas, where 72% of people are poor, compared to urban areas, where it's 42%.
The MPI report revealed that the national MPI is 0.257, indicating that poor people in Nigeria experience just over 1/4 of all possible deprivations. 65% of the poor live in the north, while 35% live in the south. Poverty levels across states vary significantly, with the incidence of multidimensional poverty ranging from a low of 27% in Ondo to a high of 91% in Sokoto. Despite several funding programs and alleviation schemes developed by the government, it seems that the country's SDG target of lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty by 2030 will take longer than expected.
Monetary poverty figures show that pre-COVID of Nigeria's over 200 million population, approximately 82.9 million, that is 40.1%, were income poor. However, multidimensionally, a higher 50% were identified as poor, while 51% experienced intense poverty in education, health, energy, water, access, and other living standard indicators. To ensure the sustainability of this new multi-dimensional way of addressing poverty, the MPI has been adopted as the key policy tool and measurement method, complementing income-based measurement for poverty within the medium-term National Development Plan 2021 to 2025.
This report shows that multidimensional poverty is higher in rural areas, where 72% are poor compared to 42% of people in the urban areas. So that we see that poverty as a phase of rural origin, nature, and also, as we soon see subsequently, the phase of women. Globally, people that are most vulnerable to poverty are very often women and children.
According to Shimale, poverty is a nationwide problem, but its nature is different in different parts of the country. So there is a need to tailor intervention to the deprivation profile of each state.
There you have it now, the report on the multidimensional poverty index. My guest is still with me in the studio, Steve Nwachukwu, financial analyst and also public policy commentator. I want you to, what's your reaction? What do you make of this index, the report?
Well, I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked. It's expected. In fact, for most those of us in the business world, or those of us who understand through the economic activities or what leads to most of these very data coming out, you find out that National Bureau of Statistics is being economical with the truth, in the sense that the criteria or the cardinal things that leads to poverty, to our own expectation or to our own estimation, we should be having somewhere around 160 to 170 million of Nigerians under poverty, in the sense that the major cardinal things that leads to poverty are found in most of Nigerians, in the life of most of Nigerians. Nigerians these days skip meals. Nigerians these days are malnourished. They don't have proteins in their food. They can't afford the fish or the meat or the chicken. So when you use the word multidimensional poverty, Nigerians, due to insecurities, you find out that a lot of families have left their ancestral home. Herdsmen are killing them in their ancestral home. Their farmlands are being destroyed. The shelter, like I said, the four basic cardinal things that determines a man who is poor, a family that is poor, is the issue of the food. Nigerians cannot find food at their table. Like I said, some skip meals just to survive. Some don't even have protein to nourish their body in their food. So these are the cardinal things. You are talking about shelter. A lot of families are living in IDPs. A lot of families. Go to Benue, go to Taraba, go to Niger, a lot of families have been sacked. So, and their farmlands destroyed. Most of these herdsmen, due to insecurity, I'm looking at from the point of the insecurity, like the word multidimensional is in many faces. So we're looking at from those who security have actually affected and thrown them into poverty line. It finds that those who came and ransacked their villages have killed them and destroyed and burned their houses. The shelter, which is one of the cardinal, has also been affected. We are talking about health. A good number of Nigerians cannot afford the basic medications. That's why you can hardly find them in. They are just walking corpse. You cannot. These are the very cardinal statistics used or data used to determine who is poor by the United Nations standard. So Nigerians cannot access good medical care. Nigerians cannot access at least a cheaper food. Nigerians cannot also access or have a very cheaper rent or have a shelter over them. Nigerians cannot also access education. That is why it is multidimensional. Those affected by security, schools are being burnt. They can't go to a better schools. They cannot go to a better hospital. They cannot find food at their table. Few that has foods are malnourished.
Steve, I understand that this report should, of course, leave its sour taste in the mouth of all of us that are Nigerians, because 63% is quite a very large chunk of the population, and I understand where your opinions are coming from. But now, besides dwelling on, we have seen the report, we have seen the numbers. Now, how can this be? How can we make this situation better? Because now, according to the report, this poverty rate is higher in rural areas. Now, how can we ensure that we enrich or make living standards better for those that live in rural areas? Because we have over 72% of those in rural areas affected by what we have seen this report expose?
Of course, naturally, those living in the rural area are often affected. Most of these indices or criteria to assess is definitely because prosperity is more in the urban area,
yes,
while in the rural area is just for survival. So the question is, when you continue to have an inflation figure above 20%,
yes,
about 21.05%, and
09%.
other indices that affects the lives of
Yes.
those, even in the urban area where the prosperity or where the good opportunities are. Talk of those in the rural areas. And I've mentioned most of these very issues that affect insecurity, affecting those. They cannot access their farm because 80 to 90% of those living in the rural area depends on the crops, the farm produce. So when you cannot access your farm, when you cannot access those crops, when there are no roads to leave those crops to where they are needed so that they can have a decent earnings, these are the things affecting the rural area. And those of them that things we are in the urban area is also affecting us. Cost of living, cost of production, cost of shelter, even cost of medical care, cost of education. These are all on the high sides. So these are realities that are facing us. And what can the government do, like you
Yes,
asked? What
yes.
can the government do? Because the ball stops on the government. You have to put up a good policy decisions that will lift Nigerians to the to growth or lift Nigerians out of poverty. But we are not seeing this government doing that. It's unfortunate because we have to be deliberate about it. You have to be conscious about it to set up policies that will lift Nigerians from poverty.
Okay.
That's what we expect from the government.
Steve, I also want to get your expectation because, of course, to solve a problem, you need data. And now we have the data with us that this is the situation. Let's provide solutions as you have stated.
Yes.
What are your expectations in 1 minute? Because of course, time is
okay,
almost
I'm so happy that the Minister of Budget and National Planning
Yes.
is there, Minister for State, and also the Chief of Staff, which means the Villa and the ministry, the two key agencies or key people responsible for taking decisions are there. So they should go and analyze those data and see what they can do. Like we talked about those, bring prosperity to those in the rural area by giving them security to access their farmlands and at least live a decent living. These are the ways you can affect them because, like I said, 70 to 80% of those living in the rural areas depend on the crops and farm produce. So give them that opportunity to access the farmlands so that they can have a different earning. Those in the urban shelters or urban
Yes.
areas, try and provide an affordable shelters. A lot of Nigerians are living in shanties. And like I said, healthcare. A lot of Nigerians are working cops. They cannot access at least basic healthcare. They cannot even access to pay for school fees. Food is not there to be found. It's too exorbitant. So these are the areas we expect the government to start tackling most of these issues.
Okay, thank you so much, Steve Nwachukwu, financial analyst and economist. Thank you for coming on the program to share your thoughts. Although I don't want to agree with you that a lot of Nigerians are walking corpses, but we know that we need more investment in the healthcare sector. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, that's where we draw the curtains for the program today. But I want to quickly say the World Cup begins this weekend, and there's also the aspect of the business of sports. And in as much as we are trying to bring revenue into the country, that's an avenue that we can also look at. I don't know if you will be in Qatar for the World Cup, Steve.
Oh, fortunately, I won't afford to be there.
Okay, so we'll be watching from Nigeria. Qatar's economy, according to the IMF, is expected to grow by 3.4%. So sports is a viable venture that we can begin to harness. So we wish all the countries going to the World Cup, of course, all the best. But the business of sports should be brought into front burner. I am Christiana Amodu Otinya. Continue to stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.